Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unfiltered Flow ELSC. I'm Megan Cook. That's Alan Burdett. Today is our pleasure to welcome Mr. Tom Price to the show. Tom is the president of Price Engineering in Heartland, Wisconsin. Welcome,
Thank
Tom.
you. Glad to be here.
Okay, so this is our favorite question, Tom. How did you get into the industry?
My uncle, Jim, was an electrical engineer and he worked for Square D in, I think it was Philadelphia. And while he was working there, he got introduced to hydraulics, pneumatics. This is right around the end of World War II. And he liked it so much that he contacted some of these companies and said, "Hey, I want to become a distributor of your products, be in Wisconsin." And of course, back then there was no contracts. They just said, sure. Companies like Charlin, a lot of companies we never heard of, they're gone or been bought out and changed names. But so he did that in 1953. And my father, a couple of years later, joined him. He was in the Army and it was military police in San Francisco, Korean War. And they started in the garage in downtown Milwaukee. And they hired their friends. They got to a storefront. They built a building down in Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, then moved out to, they all moved to Brookfield. So they got a place near Brookfield. And then there was another one in kind of Waukesha. So as I grew up, of course, I ended up working in the shop, in the warehouse, doing all sorts of the grunt work, you know, and, but learned a lot. Decided to go to school for mechanical engineering. Went to University of Wisconsin and actually played football for a couple of years, also there, walk on. Then took a job with Ingersoll Rand in Los Angeles. I moved to LA, got married, but a Wisconsin wife, Cindy, and then moved to Virginia. And by now she's like, when are we going to move? My father was a business guy. He was the sales manager, if you want to call it that, and said, "Hey, I'm ready. If you're ready for me." And they said, "No, just let us think about it for 6 months." Okay, fine. So I had to take a big pay cut, came back and went into customer service for a while, became an outside salesman for a couple of years. And at that time I was like, we have a lot of interesting engineering projects, but they seem to be lagging. They chief engineer, he was a great guy, and his son was kind of moonlighting and working there doing PLC stuff, Mitsubishi. But they were getting on over their heads and they were involved in also CAD key, sort of 2D plus, right? It wasn't quite 3D CAD yet. Anyway, they decided to eventually leave the company. And so I became the engineering manager and learned the ropes from my uncle, learned, all the schematics and formulas, became very good at it and did that so that was 86 when I joined the company, and 89 or something like that, I became the engineering manager, hired my first group of people. I got an electrical engineer shop. He brought another guy, started building a panel shop. But pretty soon I realized that the building we were in, it wasn't really going to be fit for all the stuff that I wanted to do. So Price Engineering had always made small power units, but it was really we had one shop guy. We had the chief engineer. There was a technical guy behind him who would do a lot of the quotes and some simple drawings and things like that. But the sales guys would come in and make their own power units. And I'm like, that just doesn't seem to be quite right. I'm not sure what the quality level is, but this was just a fledgling, industry, and it worked. The company got bigger and bigger. My uncle then in 1990, he retired. He was 72. And by 2001, came to my father, my brother-in-law, who was in the business as well. He was the marketing guy, and said, we don't seem to be as organized as we used to be. So I think I should be president and take over and run the business. And here's what I want to do. And I want to build a new building and buy you guys out of the lease. And so that's what we did. And so now the next generation of sort of Price Engineering. My dad retired shortly thereafter. We moved in 2001 to a 65,000 square foot building, which was at that point empty. We had a nice basketball court there. But pretty soon it got filled up, and but it was all air conditioned and uh, climate control, so that we could build these systems that I wanted to build. I like to make things, so that's what we decided. We wanted to be known for taking on things that nobody else would do. We were going to be sort of the Mavericks. It just so happened that along the way, we started working with big customers, mining. That was Harnischfager and Caterpillar. Of course, a lot of Bucyrus Erie changed to Caterpillar. Harnischfager became Komatsu. But we had some really interesting, did some phenomenal things for a period of time before all of a sudden mining kind of hit a roadblock, and a lot of those companies then moved stuff to Mexico, to Arizona, to Texas. We got into wind. We had a company called Clipper Wind, was then our biggest customer for about 5 years. That was unbelievable. So we started another business called Price on Site, which had a little division of wind, and we built these trailer systems because nobody could figure out how to change the oil up in the gearbox. So we kind of did that, made some inventions in how to, we had created a product called the dry air blanket, where we could dehumidify the fluid in the gearbox, because those were failing on a regular basis, if everybody remembers that. We also got involved in some sailboats, big mega yachts all over the world. Our first vessel was built in, not our vessel, but we partnered up with a company called Harkin, and they're one of the leaders in building sailing equipment, all sorts of things, sails and lines, but also winches, and big winches, hydraulic winches below deck, because these are big sails that might be 100, 150 feet, and a lot of power to move them. So you had 200-ton, 300-ton winches below deck doing this. And so they decided that they want to partner with some hydraulic company, electro-hydraulic. So we ended up doing about 12 vessels. The first one was in Turkey. So I spent like 3 trips out there, and we did some pretty cool stuff. The owner was probably the 50th wealthiest person in the world, Rami Koch, KOC. He was like 1/5 of the Turkish GDP. He owned everything in Istanbul, it seemed like, including the marina, including the hotel we stayed in, all the restaurants, the Ford plant, you name it. Anyway, I got to know him, and he says, this boat is not only a pleasure boat, but I want to race it. And we want to be able to do a 90-second tack. And the vessel was 190 feet long, but when you add that long thing in the front, it was probably a little over 200 some feet. And I want to do a 90-second tack. Am I going to be able to do that? And I said, I guarantee it. And he says, no way, you can't guarantee that. I go, sure I can. And I didn't know anything about sailboats really, but I knew enough about, it pays in and it pays out and haul in, right? And what every hydraulic system had one pump. And so it spent all of its time trying to run 2 systems, one that doesn't really do anything, but has all the high pressure. So I had 2 circuits. I had a high pressure and a low pressure. So and nobody ever really done that. And you can flip them both directions. So you could, pay
Call in and pay out.
all in and pay out. And one would be at its low pressure, one would be at high pressure. And so I didn't waste 40% of the energy.
Yeah.
And it was kind of unique. But that was a lot of.
Was that your most interesting project, do you think?
Well, all these things that were happening, where we're getting involved in electrohydraulics and tons of sensors, and we're now doing screens. We're helping people. On the side, I developed or started a company called the Maverick Innovation Lab in another sister town. We're in Heartland, and Delafield is a little quaint little town. Looks like from the, I don't know, 40s or 30s or something. It's really old school, Williamsburg-y kind of thing. And so really interesting buildings and restaurants and so forth. And so because we were learning how to do human-centered design, so I had met some people along the way, and we trained some folks on how to facilitate innovation in a unique way, and using these tools to help improve the operational screens, to make it easier, so you didn't have to have a big manual. You learn the heuristics of what it takes to create these operating screens that people are going to use to operate these massive, crazy pieces of equipment. And so we first started that at Price, and then moved to a separate facility, and had a lot of fun. But that helped us as we went along. And a lot of it, it comes in tides because these industries, when 2008 and 9
Yeah.
hit, well, nobody was going to buy. And so that whole thing with Harkin kind of disappeared. The mining disappeared. Fortunately, at that point, there was still I think that we got to this pinnacle where we had probably 12, up to 15 engineers. We had, programmers and electrical people and hydraulics and street, visual designers. And we're just having a lot of fun. And it was, I think, in December, and the secretary up front says, "Hey, we've got a visitor. This guy's like 6'4". He's from Oklahoma, and he says he wants to see you." I go, "Yeah, okay, I'll come right up." And it was a gentleman who worked for British Petroleum for a long time and had just recently accepted a job to be kind of an innovation and engineer for a small $30 billion firm called Apache. And they were an exploration company, but they wanted to now build the world's most automated drill rig. And he'd been looking for a company for over a year, all over, whether it was Texas or California or anywhere. And he hadn't been able to find anybody that he thought could build this gigantic structure that was going to be no hands, no, fully automated, very safe, robotic pipe handling and so forth. And so he spent a whole day. He came back that was Friday. He came back in on Saturday, and we talked some more. And I said, "Well, look, I can't really," he was like, "Look, I think you guys can do this. And I'd really like to work on getting a contract to you and put this together." And I said, "Well, whoa, just a minute. I got to get the whole team together because this is kind of massive. We need to have mathematical modeling. We need some super heavy duty computers." He goes, "Hey, we'll pay for all that. But you guys you're the only company I've seen who has the willingness to take something like this on and actually make it happen." So about 6 months later, we ended up with a contract. And over the next year, we spent about $2 million of their money. And we built a whole virtual design. We had a $250,000 computer system that could do all the mathematical modeling, curved 2 80-inch TVs that we could do all the simulation on. Hired people who could do all the math modeling. We had 3D rendering, creating a complete simulation on screen of what the whole thing would work. You could add wind, and see what would happen. And so we just got to the next phase where we're now going to actually, I'll back up. So there was another company involved who was designing the actual structure that all this was going to be created on, and they didn't really have a math. So we had to take that on too. So we had to do all the structural, but to combine that with all the hydraulics, it was pretty intense. And so to me, that was sort of the pinnacle. We're right now to the point where we're going to, I've arranged they wanted this to be a secret. You didn't want anyone to see it. So there was also kind of at that point in time, a glut in building, whether it was interest rates, I'm not sure. But I talked to some friends who own quarries. And so we had a quarry that was completely empty. And of course, this thing is going to be huge. And we needed some place to mount this thing where nobody could see it, where we could actually deploy this and practice on it that was close within 10 minutes. And so we had all that lined up, ready to get going. And the price of oil plummeted to the point where they said, we can't do it right now. They had created a new company called Canyon Oak Energy. This guy, Lance Spencer, is still the VP. I just looked him up this morning to see if this guy was still around. He called himself the father of fracking. I mean, this guy was very knowledgeable. I mean, one story was that he got a call from Russia, and they had a fire going in oil fields in Siberia. And these were frozen lakes. All this equipment is on these frozen lakes that are frozen all year long. And they were going to melt. And they only had so much time before they could put out the fire. Well, so anyway, he told this whole story. Just an insane period of time that we were doing this. And we had to just kind of package it all up, send it to him. I became an investor in this Canyon Oak. I still get a K1 from him. I still talk to him like once a year, but that's about it. So anyway. And then that kind of rolls right into about, and this is all kind of around 2014. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm still pretty young. And I go, we've gotten to be a pretty big size company, 65 million. But there's so many risks, and risks with our suppliers. And I just didn't, I got to really, think this thing through. So I started a long-term plan that I needed to find a trusted partner that I could join forces with. And then so in 2018, I joined forces with SunSource, and that's kind of where we're at. But it's changed the dynamics of price. We're not able to do the things we used to do in the same kind of manner. And I understand it. They have risk tolerance that I didn't really care about, but I could get away with it, but when I joined, the whole company was about, 500 million, and today we're plus.
This is a good time, Tom. This is ahead of when we would normally throw this out there, but since you brought this up, what are your thoughts about all of the consolidation that's going on in the industry?
Well, it's very generational. If you think about it, we went from World War II, and I'm sort of the end of the second generation. So that first generation, they started having to do things. And actually SunSource was created out of that. That was in the 90s. Sunoco gas stations, Sun Oil Company, they ended up buying a bunch of distributors, including some hydraulic, and they were some of the best hydraulic companies in the country. Anyway, so they formed that. It doesn't work so good. Uh, but now we're getting into the second generation, like myself. I'm, 66, but a lot of the manufacturers, they're in the same boat. So we've seen these changes. We've seen the changes of people, culture, of course, we know generational change and what, different generations have been and what they're like, and that is different. But we also have our equipment got tired. Software couldn't keep up, especially related to when we got COVID. We had, logistics was horrible, right? Most of the plants were operating a little bit more manual than they were in any kind of really robust electronic form. You had ERP systems that was good for manufacturing and all that and tracking, but it didn't figure out how to manage all these things once it became difficult. And so what we've seen over the last 10 years is a complete disruption of our ability to meet deadlines. The quality level isn't as good. Trying to find people who you can talk to isn't easy. Communication, even with all these tools that we have, it's become harder to do business. And I think that's, been a real stumbling block. Now we'll see what AI does. Will that help us? AI to hydraulic and into our industry seems like it's never going to happen, but it's going to happen, I'm sure, along the way. We use it all the time technically with programming and solving interesting problems and getting equations, or, we have vibration issues. We have, we find it to be immensely helpful. What would you do before that? The smart people that were all around, they're not there anymore. The love in our industry and the people who devoted to it, you're not seeing the same level.
Right. Yeah.
Now I've spent a lot of, since 2000, a lot of also my life working on education within fluid power. So we became a founding in, first robotics. We founded 3 different teams in our area with high schools. We also helped some places down in Milwaukee. We worked with NFPA in their Fluid Power Challenge. And we have now the largest group of kids participating in that at WCTC, the Waukesha County Technical College. A bunch of advisory boards with University of Wisconsin, MSOE, the local high schools, WCTC. And so we've spent a lot of money. We spent a lot of time in trying to educate people. Still today have once a month a 3-day hydraulic class that people come from all over, the employees, NFPA members, customers, Caterpillar, John Deere, you name it. So I think that we've made a difference in this industry. Even though we were a small, medium-sized business, I could go pretty much anywhere, and people say, "What do you do?" "Oh, well, I'm in fluid power." Most people wouldn't know what that is. Just reminded me a couple of years ago, I was on a ski lift in Colorado, and hey, what do you do? "Oh, I'm in, fluid power automation, Wisconsin." "Are you in price engineering?" "Yeah, I am Tom Price." Oh, you know, so there's a lot of pride in some of that, and
That's great.
kind of having a legacy and of people who, as you said, thought of us as automation or kind of leaders in that area. And so we're very proud of that. Continue some of that in the veins of what Sunsphere is willing to do and help them out. And I think we're working through all.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, all the everything you're involved in and the initiatives and
Yeah.
all of that, getting the young talent involved in the industry and understanding that it exists. It's such a great industry. You can make a great living at it, but they just don't know about it. A lot of engineers coming out of school, they have what, one fluid dynamics class maybe, and that's about it with their entire curriculum.
Yeah, and definitely starting even in middle schools and high schools to try to make a difference. We've had a few people come from those areas, the robotics team, and they say, "Hey, I was on the team, and I know guys. I left my other job. Would you consider me?" Of course, we have a lot of people on staff from MSOE, and that's because they're obviously a hydraulic educational background. They're applied science. They're not really a research, and they have done a good job at promoting that sort of thing. But it's hard to get somebody right out of there because they want to go to the manufacturers. They think that's where that's going to be, and then they get there and now they're designing the same thing over and over and over. And I
Yeah.
said,
Boring.
over and see the really cool
Exactly.
stuff to get to do the applications.
Yeah. We see that. We
Right.
see that. Yeah.
Well, so speaking of that, this ties in a little bit here, Tom. The advancements in smart technology and IoT and the changes that you've seen over the years to what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think we always like to have felt that we were always on the leading edge of things. All along, we spent a lot of time in Europe because of their environment, the cost of energy, the number of people that live in a smaller space. And so machines had to be designed to get through narrow paths and things like that. And also just their design style. So always enjoyed that. Everything from Italy, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland. I mean, so we learned a lot and used a lot of those products along the way. Always had we're very active in understanding, okay, what was IoT going to be and how it was really going to impact. And surely it has. I don't think it hit like everybody thought it was going to, because it takes a long time a lot of the products that were originally designed and created didn't maybe meet the rigors of that environment from a moisture or vibration. And so you'd have stumbling blocks, and then people get disinterested and they go back to the old stuff, and then you'd get a new generation. And so I think we have finally gotten to a point where, generally speaking, we have a lot of that going, but it is complex. We are working and just now commissioning the world's largest bucket dredge. And we're doing this while it's still operating, and it's an amazing system, and it's using all the things that we talked about, or they're a part of this, that are, CAN and all this high tech stuff, a lot of transducers and variable speed drives on our pumps and electronic pressure control and the ability to very, very create things that we never thought we could do. In the same token, some of the stuff that we've done on other pieces of machinery where we're tracking them, we can see where they are anywhere in the world. We can see what's happening, what the status of their filters are. Did they open or close? Is it working properly? What are the pressures? And they may not even know we're doing it. We just kind of put it on there, but we had so many instances where people would say, "Hey, your thing did this, or your thing is not doing that," and we go, no, yeah, sometimes it's us. Or we might say, "Yeah, but hey, these filters are dirty," or a guy hit an e-stop and it opened the chute and it dumped it. That's not our fault. You know, and so it's helped us along the way, and then it's helped us. So I think of some of this stuff, like the digital twins, and these are the things that we felt like we were headed to, but we sort of backtracked, and we haven't really, the mathematical modeling and the systems that we could have done and things like that got so complex and took a lot of money that people are maybe realize that maybe we weren't ready for all that. So I think we're now in a good, people understand more of a regimented way to implement this stuff, and it's happening, and there's a lot of success. I mean, electrification, but just like we thought electrification was going to take over, it's been, people spend a lot of money, but we don't see it as being a complete breakthrough, and that there's a lot of these machines going in that direction. It's very specific, it's very specific, California, for example, or certain things where it really makes sense. but it's a very fascinating area, and I'm looking forward to see how these technologies can continue to blend together and make it easier for us to do this and not more complicated.
What do you see as the biggest current challenge right now?
Um, well, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, how do we draw people into this? It's uh, finding people who are willing, because a lot of these things you can't just do from your desktop. And so we have a group of younger people who don't really want to they want to come in at 8:30 and leave at 4:30, and that's it. They're going to get on their bicycles or their kayaks or whatever that's going to be. And so it makes and I'm not dishing that, because there's a lifestyle that has been created around the world about doing this kind of thing, right? And so how do we blend these things together? But when you need to go start up something, or you have an issue and you need people to go do it, it's harder and harder to find anyone who's willing to go there and actually spend a week or a couple of days, or God forbid, spend a Saturday doing something. You don't have that kind of same thing where, it didn't really matter, you kept doing it. So
Yeah.
that's a different mentality. And I don't think it's hard. So what we've learned is, found some, if you find ex-military who then got an engineering degree, or had an engineering degree and then did some of that in the military, those people they're hardened, more conditioned to kind of be able to and willing to go do it. So that's been some success. There's a lot more revolving door. So you don't get an employee that stays there, and it's harder to keep that. They want to do something for a little while, and then they want to try something else, and then they want to try something else. And so you're constantly, and we don't have the staff to handle that. Day, do what you can. You find people who have the same kind of, what you hope is the same kind of values and the same kind of maverick style. And we're going to go do this, and we're going to take care of the customer. And it's a little bit harder. Customers are extremely demanding in these fields, and today's guidelines, it makes it harder and harder. So I think that's an area that we're all getting used to, where it's a new paradigm. You just have to train your customers that this is how it's going to be, and we'll be there here, but we have to leave then. And hopefully more and more you can do these things remotely, and we can see what's going on. We can, push code and things like that. But sometimes it's not, hydraulics isn't that simple sometimes, or pneumatics, or even electronics. And sometimes you have to be there to.
Right.
So I think that's kind of an interesting part. And are the schools really doing us justice in how they're teaching the people, right? So, normally what I see today is, you get freshman, sophomore, junior, and they're all doing their classes, they're working on things individually, and then finally in their senior year, they get to actually go do a project together. It's too late.
Mhm.
We want people who can already, when they get to they've already been doing this, right? And the electrical guy's been working with this guy, getting mechatronics, everybody. Look, that's not my specialty. I understand it. We have to work together. We have to have the same language, that's why some schools like Georgia Tech and others are building innovation labs where they're teaching some skills. I called it human-centered design or design thinking. These are where we have to look at the whole, what does the customer really want? What are we trying to do? And we have to, make it advanced yet acceptable. So learning how to get those students to work with the business students, to work with the marketing, build little companies, not companies so much, but, envision work as, hey, we have an idea, and this team, you're going to work on a year. And when you're a sophomore and a junior, you're going to still know each other. Or you might have a new team, but this is where I think we have to reevaluate how we're teaching, and how we can have these folks, when they're ready to come into the workplace, that it's not 2 or 3 years or 4 or 5, that they're immediately, and it's possible. We have this guy, Brandon, he's fantastic, but he went to the military, then he went to MSOE. Now we give him a job, and he just nods, asks a couple of questions, and in a day or two, he comes later, you go, holy cow, look at what he already did. He's already accomplished all this. He's got these screenshots. He goes, we could do this. And it's exciting to have people like that.
Yeah, those 2 points come up a lot. The first one, you know, trying to assess those soft skills during interviews. So, what you're talking about, the internal drive, the curiosity, the accountability is one side of it. And then the other side is that the hands-on learning, sitting in a classroom really isn't going to, one, get you excited about it, and two, just isn't going to give you the knowledge that you need to come out of the gate running either.
That's why you like the kids who have been in any of these challenges. You know, if you get the Baja challenges or the first robotics. I mean, any high school kids and then who've been in that they can get to any college they want. And they are also the people that join all the little clubs and are
Right. Yeah.
because they've already been hands-on. They've been programming. They've had other kids in the group who were the marketing kids, or they were trying to sell it, or they're, it's when I look at what First Robotics did, that was one of the best things I've seen in terms of really getting these high schools and getting colleges along the way and the mentors to come together. And I think there's more things like that that have to be created.
Agreed. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges. What's going well? What's good? What do you see coming up? That is exciting.
Exciting and scary, right? Well, how are we going to use AI? I think what we're going to see is that it's going to help us pull a lot of these things together and make it easier for all these discrete systems to kind of start communicating and talk to each other. When you start to look at trying to, as you're an OEM and you're building whatever it might be, a piece of equipment, and there's a lot of different products that have to go together, and they're not all from the same company, and even though they're supposed to be on the same protocol, they don't always talk to each other properly. And there's glitches, and these are the things that you scratch your head and you just can't. It takes weeks to sort of uncover it and little bugaboos, and then this happens. So I think seeing where these MSOE is a good example because I'm see that get tours on a regular basis, but they now have an AI lab and they're focusing on combining these things with all different kinds of parts of their school, not just the hydraulics, but they had students in soccer and they wanted to figure out how to pull together technology and AI and cameras to improve defense and scoring. I mean, it was fascinating. These kids had these, senior projects, and I was like, clever. I mean, just really interesting. Or two other guys creating better how to teach somebody a foreign language and do it really quickly. And they were using AI and other things to kind of do this. So I think as we look at how can we really get this IoT to come together, it needs this intellectual master thinking that can help do this for us, because us as humans, we are good at, and we have three people and each one of us is good at something, but are we good at all three things? And probably not. And that's what makes it challenging. And now you have to get all those three people or five people or 10 people in your team to sort of all work together and understand back and forth how you're combining these things. And so I think as we go down this path, you're going to see some of this AI and these smart systems can help pull all this together and make it more seamless, work together, and be more robust in terms of how do we debug it. It's going to debug itself. It's going to tell us what's going on. So I think that's the fascinating part that we're going to be entering in.
Yeah. That is exciting.
Yeah. So this is a big topic right now, Tom, supply chain disruptions. How are you managing that, or what are you doing to mitigate, or is it not really impacting you at this point?
Well, I would say it's finally sort of getting better, but it took slowdown in business to make it happen. I mean, if we had been just continuing to go on, so we've been at least in fluid power and others, you might look at the economy's, GDP 3%, but we've been kind of treading water over the last 2 or 3 years, and so even though they continue to have issues with a variety of things, a lot of it is just their own internal issues in terms of executing innovation at their, or systems. So whether it be, hey, we're going to SAP, or whatever software it might be, or we have a new inventory system. Every one of our major manufacturers has had some major glitches in those areas where we can't find it. It's not here. We don't know. It's not, nothing's connecting. And it's taking them not 2 months, but it's taking them years to actually debug these things. And so that's been the most discerning of all things, and trying to explain that to your customers. And so you have your suppliers coming to you and saying, hey, we've got to go sell. We've got to increase our sales. And we go, well, people don't even want to talk to us because we can't even get them the things that so how can we go talk to and sell products when we can't even get the backlog of stuff that you owe us into their systems? I mean, it's been very, very frustrating. And where you used to be able to call somebody up, you can't call anybody up anymore. You have to, you know, send them a message, and then you hope they get back to you. And then, or you may have to go into some chat forum, or, I mean, so aren't necessarily making it easier for anybody to do these things. The transparency has been poor. Oh, we have an online, you can see what we have in stock online. I go, okay, good. How is that working? Oh, it's only, maybe 60% accurate or whatever it is, so we're getting there, but it's still been fraught with difficulties and things that you would think the most common things, fluid conveyance. I don't want to name any names, but just us trying to get, customers the products that they need when they need them. And so we've shut factories down. We've shut lines down. And so what are we doing? We have more inventory than we know what to do with, we keep buying more inventory, hoping, but you know how it is, every time you think you have the right inventory, the customer decides to change his mind.
Change something. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So now it's obsolete. And so all those best laid plans, so we get stocking agreements, we get all that. But at the end of the day, the customer's always right. And we said, but you said you were going to take all this stuff. Well, yeah, but we didn't really mean it. And now you want to force us to take it, and well, we won't buy from you anymore. Okay, great. And it's not just our suppliers. It's been throughout the whole industry, and it's not just fluid power. It's been electrical. It's been, you name it. As I said, this is systematic. It's been coming, and we it's like Y2K. We thought, the earth was going to stop, because of, all the computers were going to shut down. Well, we didn't really go through that, but we've had these generational changes. And if you pay any attention to like the fourth turning and all those kinds of things and generational theory, I think we're in one of those periods of the fourth turning, and we're at it. This is, if you think of generations as spring or spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring, hey, things are growing. Summer, oh, it's flourishing. Fall, the leaves are turning. Winter, cold, gloom, dark. Something bad happens. So we're in that little spot where we have some major challenges that we'll see if we fix them. I mean, time will tell. It's a turbulent period of time. And just when we think it's all got to go away, it just keeps rearing its ugly head.
Good.
So thanks a lot, Megan.
Very much,
Appreciate your
Tom.
time.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
hopefully we can stay in touch, and give me, if you need some help in your business, you never know.
Sounds
well.
good. Bye, Tom.
Great holiday.
You too.